G'day, welcome to Mark and Sam After Work. Today I want to go through a quick video, some info that most people probably know, some probably don't, and in reference to all these bullets I've got in front of me. Now, largely it's not about brands of bullets. This is just a bit of a display, something to look at, and it's also to talk about the fact we use a fair few different styles. We largely use the Burger a lot of the time. Burger, we largely use those, but we use the Hornadies, we use the Nozzlers, we use Sierra Match Kings, we use all sorts of things, and then Shitaks and machine bullets and that sort of stuff. So we've got a moderate amount of experience in that place. But there's two things I wanted to point out, which, like I said, I think some people know and some people don't. And that is, and I'm talking about the jacketed lead core bullets, so your normal bullet, like your, and generally in your precision bullets, so whether that's your RDFs or your VLDs or whatever the type of thing, a good quality, high BC precision bullet. And what I'm talking about there is a couple of things. One is the fact of how they're made and to some degree why they cost different prices. The way the bullets are made, they're swaged, so they get a piece of copper that's squashed through mandrels in a various sequence to end up where you get a nice, where you get a bullet. Whether it's nice or not, you get a bullet out of the end of it. To do that in a precision fashion, they need to spend a fair bit of money to make nice mandrels, to go through this process and set it up so it works as properly and consistently as possible. And one of the things that causes, which can make bullets more expensive than others, is the more effort involved in getting that procedure done in a fashion that ends up with a very precise result. And the fact that in those swaging heads, there are slight differences. Now I'll get into what I'm actually talking about. That means that from one swaging head to another swaging head in the finished result, the bit that gives you the actual bullet, you'll get slight differences. No matter how much they try, they'll get slight differences between them. Plus, as they wear, they slightly change as well. Now they'll have a measuring process that means that they are within tolerance, so they'll let them get changed, they'll let them wear to a certain degree to where it'll only be a small change, but once they've worn, they will then replace them. The more commonly and the more the less amount of bullets they produce between changing heads cost more money. But there's another key for some of the larger manufacturers. What they do is they have multiple stages or multiple assembly lines, essentially, where you end up with, if you've got one factory with just one assembly line with one finishing swaging die, then you can only go as fast as that machine can go. The way you can produce more bullets in less time, which means that it costs you less money, is to have multiple assembly lines or multiple parts in your assembly line. We have multiple finishing dies. So then whether it's 2, 3, 4 or 10, you end up producing bullets faster, which costs you less money. As said, there's slight differences, not only in the wear side of things, but also just in those heads. So that means what you'll tend to find is that both through the speed and weight they're produced, a little bit the quality, a little bit the level of effort that goes into it, depending on what sort of what manufacturer you're talking about, that sort of stuff. But certainly once you get to a point, even when they do everything else right, and everything else is as good as it can be, if you end up with multiple lines producing the one bullet, multiple finishing staging heads or finishing dies producing the one bullet, you're going to get slight discrepancies in there. There'll be slight differences. With the benefit of that, the bullets will be cheaper. And the opposite side of things, and I'm not going to try and go into brands in any other than a couple of different places, the benefit of some of the more expensive bullets is they only have one die producing those bullets, so they all end up a lot more consistent sizes, more consistent weights, more consistent sizes, because it's the one die. Now, I think, and I don't want to just put dispersion on any of the companies and that sort of stuff, but the likes of the differences I've found previously in the normal Hornady bullet, there's two things. It's a tipped bullet, so there's a bit of pushing a bullet together, and you've got a joint in there, which is not quite as consistent as having one piece of copper, but multiple finishing dies. So they produce more bullets, they produce them more cheaper, and because of that, these bullets were cheaper, but I've found slightly less consistent than the likes of the Burger. Now, and I presume in the nozzle and that sort of stuff, but I really don't know. But in my experience, both the Sierra Match King and the Hornady have been a little less consistent. My presumption is, and I'm not trying to say this is the fact at all, my presumption is, and from little bits of knowledge I've managed to glean, is that they have multiple heads on that side of things. So they end up with multiple runs, multiple bullets being produced out of different dies at that end, which means there's tiny differences. Only tiny differences. And what I should say on that sort of score, when you're shooting, probably up to 800 yards or 1,000 yards even, but probably back down on the 600 and 800 yards, these differences are probably not noticeable. And if you're shooting lots of rounds and they work really well, hey, don't change anything, not trying to say that at all. But if you're looking for that extra bit of consistency, that extra bit of what's going on here, that's where that simply slightly more expensive manufacturing process of that one stage, which from my knowledge is in Burger. I'm presuming it's in Muzzle because of the level of things. And listen, I'll stop talking brands I don't know, but they are more consistent in measuring and in shooting, and my presumption is exactly that. Now that moves into this box here, the Hornady A-tip, and a little bit what's going on there. They speak about 100 consecutive bullets when you buy these. They're a fair bit more expensive. My thoughts are that they've actually broken that up to where they are just using the one head. That would be my thought on it, and that's where it's their way of advertising exactly that they're coming back to. It's the one head that's actually a finishing head that's doing it, so it costs them more to produce them that way, but that's what these A-tips are really about. There's some other things going on with the fact there's still a tip bullet, and testing will tell, and I'm doing that sort of process as I go, but that would be making sense of that side of things. Now that little conversation, as you might have noticed, I said wear's involved. And yes, that's still a relevant factor. And for no matter what the company is, and I can speak about Burger, I don't know about RDF, but that doesn't really matter. I don't know about Nosler, but it doesn't really matter. Those heads will wear, for one thing, so there's a slight change as they go. Now whether that's 100,000 bullets or 1 million bullets or 10 million bullets, I don't know how many bullets they produce. It would be done like any manufacturing process. They will have a tolerance of where their bullets have changed enough that they then go and put a new head in it. Now, there's two things. Like I said, the more often they do that, the more cost it is to them, but that isn't actually the bigger deal. Every time they do that, the bullet will change slightly, marginally, whether it's the overall length or whether it's the actual exact Z-cant radius or whether it's where the ogive is, or there'll be little tiny changes in there. That might be 2 thou and might be 10 thou. They are changes between those. By staying with the same head and gradually going, and especially if you're buying a batch of bullets at one time where they're all produced at this time, they're going to be very, very consistent. But what will happen, and whether that's in 6 months' time or that's in 2 years' time, when they actually change that head, that bullet will be a tiny bit different again. So if you're loading to a specific jump, you can need to actually check them, and because they may have actually changed. If you're loading to a specific overall length, you may find that changed a little bit. It's not something that is a major negative, it just means you need to stay measuring that sort of stuff. I've run into this sort of thing in my own testing. Everything changes, brass changes, powder changes, primers change, everything actually changes. It all is actually changing, and if you have a very specific load, the best way to have that very specific load is you have one batch of stuff you're using with the whole thing. I've had the conversation where guys they'll go and get themselves 5 boxes or 10 boxes of bullets. They will use them, and these are generally match shooters, so they'll use them, that sort of stuff. But they will always make sure they keep half a dozen or half a box of them, so when they run out, they don't use those. When they get their next lot of bullets, they can do a comparison between them. It might be one step too far for people. My main comment is to say two things. One is that no matter what the bullet, they are not going to be completely consistent over the long period of time. They might be completely consistent over 2 years of buying them because everything's running very nicely and the change of wear is so subtle you're not even going to pick it up. But if you're in the middle of where they've changed over heads because it's got to that worn place, and then the next batch could be moderately different, it's still going to be essentially all the same things, but the nature of the machining process to build these things means there is subtle differences. The other point is for people who are talking about, oh, I wouldn't spend that much money on bullets, they're not worth it, these things shoot fine. Listen, that may be the case. But if you're getting to the point where you can't figure out why it is, and I suppose this is more a long range, really more extreme long range sort of stuff, where that ballistic coefficient really matters intently, where your bullet setup is really important. There is more variance. You have you'll drop your, I suppose, really one shot to another shot. You have a slight difference in those bullets, just 0.5 of a grain or 0.2 of a grain or 0.1 of a grain in bullet weight changes start to make a difference when you're going out a really long way. So it's something that if you're finding in whatever it is, listen, I suppose what I would say in my honest stuff, and I only do a little bit of shooting with that sort of stuff, but I've found with the older, although very efficient and work nicely, not quite as consistent as I wanted to be in the old Hornadies, and I found the same thing for the Sierra Match Kings. Not a problem all back inside normal shooting ranges, but my ELR stuff, I found that maybe that was just batches, but those are my assumptions I made there, and really I just wanted to put forward to people that they do change a little bit. They work fine for you, leave them alone, don't fix what ain't broke. But if you're looking for something extra, if you're looking for that extra bit, yeah, maybe spending a bit more on a bullet can really help. Anyway guys, that's my little bit of info for today. Hope that helps some people. Hope I didn't offend anyone with the brands you're supporting and that sort of stuff. Not trying to do that, just trying to help. Anyway guys, thanks for checking in on us. We'll catch you next time.
Hi everybody, Sam here. Today I wanted to bring you a new item that we're putting on our web store, and that is the coffee cup, which is actually a lot more than a coffee cup. It is support. These will be $30. They cost us $10. So anyone who purchases one of these will be giving us $20 support, and that's very much appreciated. We put a lot of time, effort and money into doing what we do, so the support would really help. To all those who do support us, subscribers, people who follow us on YouTube and Facebook, people who purchase our products and support bits, thank you very much. It is very much appreciated. These will now be on our store, and there'll be a link below the video to check them out. Thanks for watching. See you next time.